How many of you know of Watch Duty today? Okay, so we don't have to cover that part. How many of you know the history of it to some sense? Okay, we don't have to cover a lot of that then. Well, we'll definitely touch on it. I just don't know if I want to, we don't need to spend an hour on it. So again, my name's Josh Leone. I'm part of the founding team for Watch Duty. I live out on Sweetwater Springs Road. I am Wallbridge fire line, 3 feet from behind my house. So I'm intimately familiar. We started kind of Watch Duty with this idea after 2020 to get social media groups together. Many of us were admins on various Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and knew that social media was absolutely horrendous for reporting on fire, but the information that we were doing was really valuable. So as we were coming together, John Mills, owner and CEO of Watch Duty, bought his ranch out on the east side of Sweetwater and said, hey, I'm recently retired, sold out from his .com business. I can bring a lot of money and technology to what you guys want to do. So we got together as groups of people that were managing social media. John said, I'll write you guys this app. You guys just do what you do and report on fires and we'll recruit from others. And so that's what we did. Myself, you'll see my name, Damien Bounet, who lives out in Cazadero, Sarah Paul out in Monterey, Nick Russell in Petaluma, and Cole Yukin up in Lake County. We were kind of the ones that came together. Those are the names you're going to see for anything that's Sonoma County related. Which is a benefit of, we're in like 12 states now, and Sonoma County has 5 people dedicated to just here. We watch it 24 hours a day. If it sniffs fire, someone's watching it. Probably 3 or 4 today. If it gets dispatched, we're there to watch it. We get so much of it wasn't on Watch Duty, and we purposely don't do that so you don't have to worry about it. I swear the amount of poor barbecues that these guys have to go to on the holiday weekends is just obscene to listen to, or the amount of pig roasts that are in the ground that put up a lot of smoke, right? We're in this balance area of, if you don't see it there, you generally don't have to worry about it. I tend to cover early morning stuff, 5 a.m. on, and we have teams that cover up to about 1 or 2 a.m. and a full-time reporter out of New Zealand that covers our nighttime. This was definitely our mission, was to be fast, comprehensive, actionable, but without inflecting fear. It's a real fine line between get information out correctly, don't put out fear, don't make lives harder for people, don't withhold critical information, and try to walk this fine line. Most of us, myself, I'm in the tech industry. I own 2 software companies and run engineering for 2 others. I was decided early on in my technical career that I was a horrible software developer, so they stuck me in management. And with that, I was able to interpret very, very complex tasks that were technical to people that weren't, and that followed me to Watch Duty. Discern a lot of complicated scanner traffic, try to inflect from the emotions of the voices that you hear, the criticality of what is going on, to get that information in the right context to you. And it's a fine line, which is why, unlike a lot of the other services, we don't rely on computers, a lot of automation. It is humans listening to things. We've written a lot of automation that'll get us information, but it's always humans that are going to digest to put that out. None of this is going to be a surprise to you. All of us are living in wildfire area. 5 out of the 10 biggest wildfires in the last 10 years. Marshall and I know each other well. We talk about fire history often. We spent time talking about like the Hanley fire up by in Fountain Grove, right? There's history showing back that corridor is burned way back to the mid 1800s. Fire history is here. It's not foreign to anybody, but it is foreign to a lot of people outside of California that are just starting to learn about it. We started reporting wildfires for Texas this year, and that was a community that was not prepared at all. Did not have any kind of inclination that these things could happen. New Mexico's been learning it in spades over the last 2 or 3 years, and then obviously Hawaii. We learned early on that our first responder tech infrastructure, it's just not designed for you, right? It's designed for them. Information is designed to flow for them. We've been told more than once that the people don't want to know about this stuff. And that might have been true for a long time. But once our county burned down, people wanted to know about it. So we needed to figure out what that balance was. We had the advantage of, we don't work for the government. We don't take money from the government. We're volunteers. We're a nonprofit. We're not trying to make money. We just want to sustain ourselves. And we just want to get the information that we feel people need to have. And what we found out, there's just too much misinformation. Social media is just the bane of existence. You go onto a Facebook page, someone says this is on fire, that's going on. Sometimes you don't see it till 2 days later. Who knows whatever nonsense is going out on Twitter land anymore. The information that you get from so-called trusted sources are not trusted sources. You're not hearing it from the battalion chiefs. You're hearing it from some guy who knows a guy. And so we've decided, let's see what we could do to listen to this traffic and get information out and figure out how to share it with you. We are now at 4 million users, which means we've acquired 2 million users this summer, which is fantastic and horrible at the same time. Almost a million because of the park fire alone. That was a massive test to us as volunteers, as an infrastructure, as a piece of software. We're talking evacuations in 4 states, a very volatile situation, and our systems held up pretty strong. And that was, we acquired like 1 million users over a 4-day span. So we capture data, we validate, we alert when appropriate. I am friends with many CAL FIRE people that say, hey, I watch this thing as I'm learning about what's going on as I'm headed to fires. It's just another tool that we use, and that's fantastic. We had no idea that firefighters were going to use some of this information to help them. We've heard it from air attack as well. Like, hey, I actually have this thing on, and while I'm headed to figure out what's going on, just like the intel I'm catching on my radio, I'm catching it from you guys as well. Because sometimes even for them to catch real world information is just another piece of context to help them. As they're catching very technical dispatch information, they're seeing it as someone's interpreting it to the real world. First thing we did was we wrote a very strict code of conduct. Although we are not government, we try to treat ourselves to some extent on how we do our reporting in government. Only official information. You're only going to hear it if we heard it, and usually if 2 people heard it. It's sometimes okay if we're listening and the person reporting, if I'm reporting, if I don't hear it, but 2 of my colleagues hear it, I'll consider that official. We don't put any real opinion-based work in there. We will try to make the wording friendly, but it won't be opinionized. We're not in the business of addresses, names, injuries, any of that. And we always collaborate before publishing. It'll be very rare on any size fire, especially in Sonoma County, that you don't have 3 people that are paying attention. Okay. Being that most of us are in the software industry that started this, if we have to do one task more than once, we automate it because we're notoriously lazy. And everything that you get from Watch Duty, we have some kind of bot that is mining data. It's mining data from CHP. It's mining it from a program called Wildcat. If that information is publicly available, we have something that's running in real time, capturing that to feed it to us. And for Sonoma County, in the event a vegetation fire gets dispatched, and you get that on your pulse point on your phone, I'm assuming almost all of you have pulse point, we actually have a piece of software that'll break through all pieces of do not disturb and rattle our phones like it's one of those Amber Alerts. And 5 of us get that 24 hours a day. And it'll blow through any do not disturb, and that tells us something's happening, go pay attention. Not all counties go about it that way. If we had that for Kern County, we would never sleep. Our poor guys in Kern County working 24 hours a day, 10 fires a day, that 9 of them end up being nothing. But in Sonoma County, Redcom is very good. And so we're able to kind of have that and still, keep some semblance of balance. We feed all this information into a piece of software called Slack. Slack is owned by a company called Salesforce out of San Francisco. John went to Salesforce, up to Salesforce Tower, and showed them the pictures to remind them of what it looked like after the Walbridge fire. Remember that day of orange? and said, someone in your building took this shot, and we want to remind you what it looked like. And they said, we'll give you all of your infrastructure for free. And that's all it took, with him with a big poster of 5 minutes saying, we need your help. We're doing this for the community, you know, pony up some stuff. So they donate infrastructure. Amazon donates infrastructure. And then we've been slowly hiring software people to help build out the tool. It all comes together in the WatchDuty app. It's written once and is deployable on the app and both phones. So when we go through it today, I'm going to show it in reference to what it looks like on the web, but I'll talk you through it on your phones. That's your team that I was talking about. You'll see one of these 4 names or Cole's name on any fire reported. Obviously, our big fire this year from Lake Sonoma, at one point there was 9 of us on that fire, handling different aspects of it. WatchDuty has that ability to take photos. Sometimes it just gets flooded. So we have to keep an eye on that. We have radio traffic. We want to make sure when evacs come out that they're correct. I noticed Misty's name was up there, but she's not here today. I even got a call from Misty from the sheriff's office that said, hey, we want to make sure these evacs are going out to correctly to the WatchDuty team. So we're very close collaborative with the sheriff's department. And then whenever we hear Marshall's voice on the radio, we know we're going to get very good intel. I wish I could say the same for all of his peers, but we always know. And we always feel better. Marshall's on the job. We know it's going to be taken care of. But we know that voice very well. And we know when he's frustrated with his dispatch too. Our board of directors, or one of our board, Brian Fennessy and Marshall's here, big contributor to just make us better, right? The people that don't care about the bureaucracy just want to get the information to people. That's all they care about. Brian Fennessy was the one who helped start the FIRUS program. Those are those IR mapping planes that now is ran by Cal OES. That's one of the most valuable assets you have. When those perimeters come up and we can see where fire goes compared to where it started, that gives a good idea of what direction things are. You add in those little hot spots, a little bit of wind layer, and you can kind of determine what this thing is going to do. But that's adding fire perimeters has been absolutely huge. We also learned early on that our radio infrastructure in Sonoma County is fantastic, and the rest of the state, it is not fantastic. So we started building our own. We call these devices Echo. They have a bunch of hardware in there that'll take radio feeds, disperse them out to Broadcastify. We have also 3 here in Sonoma County. Some of them are in stereo, so you can actually hear 2 scanners at the same time, which can jiggle your brain a bit, but it's really nice. And at the same time, we transcribe that to text. Every single thing that goes over, we have some kind of text record that it went through. We do that to save ourselves. When someone comes and yells at us later that said, hey, you said this zone was evacuation, we don't think it was, we can go back to records and say, this is what was said, this is what you did, and this is why we responded that way. Eventually, lawyers will get involved. So that's why we have that. We started expanding out to prescribed burns, very important during the wintertime. Everyone's still on edge. Doesn't really matter if you have 6 inches of rain, someone sees a lot of smoke, people get a little edgy. So we put in the big prescribed burns, and we also have the big prescribed burn agencies adding to it. The Audubon agency is adding to it. We actually had a fire last year that we saw get dispatched right where a burn was happening. And it ended up that someone called the wrong number to register their burn. And so we actually got on the phone and said, you have a registered burn here. You probably don't have a problem. And we probably saved a whole lot of equipment going out to investigate something that was already there. So that's turning out to be really, really valuable as well, mainly in the off-season. Technology partners, government first responders. It's been a tenuous relationship here in Sonoma County with government officials. I think John came in a little hot. If you've met John before, John's a hot guy. You silly people, this is a solvable problem. Why have you not solved it? I had to remind him, we live here like full time. You can't really do that. But things have tempered down and we've built good relationships. Nick Russell's the head of our operations. He was a farmer in Petaluma. He gets along great. I have great relationships with Linda Hopkins out in the West County and the Sheriff's Department. So I think those relationships are getting stronger. It's very good open lines of communications. Like I said, during that Sonoma fire, Lake Sonoma fire, I got a call from the sheriff's department. We were able to collaborate, and things are in great shape. We've been invited to PG&E's HAWK, which is their emergency command center, multiple times. This was something that we toiled with of, do we get in bed with PG&E or do we not? We're not really big fans. It's caused us a lot of problems. They said, look, we're trying to turn a leaf. We're trying to make things better. We love your data. We would like to pay for your reporting data. And we came to the realization that if we didn't sell them our data, not your data, just the data that we produced, that someone else would. So I'd much rather take the money that they're spending and get it somehow back to the community in some form, as opposed to going into some lawyer or bureaucracy hands. So we team up pretty well with PG&E, and it's been a good relationship. American Red Cross is opening our system for evac centers. My mother-in-law is very active in the Red Cross. Watch Duty is all over there to make sure that Red Cross has Watch Duty on all of their phones. Ways to support our mission. We have these donations and membership levels. That's not really the way that Watch Duty wants to run. We don't want to take anything from the community. We're trying to continue to get big tech to invest. We've gotten multiple millions of dollars from the big boys in Silicon Valley, and we're going to continue to push on them because that's what's going to really sustain us. But we've been told by people like, we want to give you some money. So we'll take donations. We'll have different membership levels that'll give you better advanced features, but nothing that's going to require you or need you to have for life safety. That will always be free for Watch Duty members. Okay, this is a really hard slide to read. Basically, this year we've concentrated a lot on making our lives easier, because we knew if we could make reporter lives easier, we could get information faster. So a lot of evacuation zone data comes into our system, which was very valuable for the Park Fire. Right? Every county doesn't necessarily have the evacuation stuff for the next county. And it doesn't do any good if your evacuation zone at the end of Sonoma County butts up to something in Mendocino and you don't know what's going on in Mendocino. So we decided we're going to take all these different disparate systems all over the Western US and combine them to one. So we spent a lot of time on that. We would like to be able to get into disaster work for earthquakes, potentially for hurricanes, tornadoes. They all are a little bit unique. I do a lot of reporting in the West County for flooding, obviously out on the Russian River. Earthquakes is the most interesting, but it's really hard to test against because until we have a couple, we don't really know how to report on them. We were fortunate and unfortunate enough to report on one up at Ferndale last year and got a little bit of practice of, okay, when earthquakes happen, how does this sound over radios? What are the kind of responses? Okay, we got to pay attention to bridges more than things that are in the wildlands. So that's kind of where we want to head. And we're just going to continue to work on things like smoke coverage, things that'll help just give you a little bit more information on what fire is doing what. We're working on some systems out of San Diego for wildfire, basically modeling. That's going to show anticipated progressions. Again, that's a double-edged sword. You don't want to scare people to show that, look at what this fire could do, but at the same time, you want to give people an idea of the fire could do this direction, probably not this direction. So we're going to start to get into that and figure out what the right balance is. Okay, I breezed through that, and then we can get into the app. Any questions about us? Yes?
Since you're the engineer on the more technical side,
yep.
Considering that you gained 1 million users over the course of the summer, what kind of infrastructure do you have for scaling? I imagine this is AWS Cloud.
We run Heroku on Salesforce with some AWS components that all auto scale.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it's a model that was very much built from Netflix, right? Netflix learned early on that Netflix was really popular on Friday and Saturdays, but not so popular on Mondays. So when demand hit, infrastructure would auto spin up. When demand went down, infrastructure would auto spin down. And so it's really expensive for us when fires hit and really cheap for us when they don't.
About the teams that you have, like in the other states,
yep.
Are the other states, they provide their own people? How does
yep. We found others like us. We went hunting through social media groups, found people that were like us, very like-minded, just, you know, trying to help their community out, and said, here's just a big old megaphone for you. And I would say we've had pretty good success. Out of all the people that have either we've found or that have come to us, we've had like a 98% retention of people that wanted to stay on it. And we've had some communities that are very suspicious. Spokane area, that Eastern Washington, very highly suspicious of everything we were doing. But all it took was a couple of big wildfires to say, we're no longer suspicious. You know, we see it. You know, because you come from California, you have this reputation, you're big tech, right? You're trying to make this into some profit gain, and it takes a while to gain people's trust, to show we're a nonprofit, we're volunteers, we're just like you in rural communities. We're just trying to give you a better way to get information out. So our team is about 180 strong now.
Long-term plan for long-term. You hope that this sells to someone else in the far future?
No, the long-term plan will never to be to sell it, just for it to sustain itself, and to be able to just continue to march east and grab disasters and get information out. But that was one of the things that those of us that were starting to do this were very keen on. Like, when we build this has to be a nonprofit. We cannot sell out to some other company like Genesis, right? Genesis does the old Zone Haven, and they did evac mappings. That is a for-profit disaster company, and they're there to make money. And they're not big fans of ours, and we're not huge fans of theirs, because we don't think disaster should get profited off of. Anything in this business should be in some kind of nonprofit hand. Chief. Yeah. So obviously Redcom's showing everyone who's registered a prescribed burn, right? We don't really care about some guy's slash pile, but big vineyard burns, anything that's 5 acres plus that they're doing a burn on. Yep. Yeah. And that's just as important, right? Visibility for us, even when we report on fires now, one of our original rules was, if aircraft get deployed, we're going to report on it. Well, aircraft get deployed for everything, which is fantastic. But it means we're reporting on a lot smaller things now, because part of our rules has said people want to know why birds are in the air. And even if it's not a real threat, we report on it. And yeah, we'll get you the right email address. It's one of those. It's probably pio@watchduty.org. I'm not sure if there's one set for prescribed that goes to the system, but it's one of those. Yeah, and that'd be fantastic.
I have my own opinion, but since you brought up Pulse Point, how do you differentiate Watch Duty?
Right, so Pulse Point's an interesting company, right? They were established to try to get people in the proximity of defibrillators. That was their real purpose in life. And they've inadvertently created this online dispatching program. So whatever comes through Pulse Point is whatever gets dispatched. Whatever gets called in, moves from 911 to Redcom, that's what goes through. That's not sheriff related. So you get everything. If the guy over here says, I see a vegetation fire, that gets dispatched. If it's real or not, we don't know. So Pulse Point originally was, wow, this is a really useful tool. And then it was, wow, this is a really stressful tool, because there's a lot of stuff that gets dispatched all the time. So we are very careful with it. And, you know, anything that isn't a vegetation fire, we tend to ignore, except for high profile structure fires that either put off a lot of smoke or have some kind of potential impact to neighbors. But otherwise, you're not going to see us report on things from Pulse Point that shows structure fire. But a lot of our automation utilizes their public website to mine that data all over the state. And it's one of the sources of information that we use. But I don't think they really knew that they created this online dispatch monitoring program, when all they really wanted to do was save lives by putting people close to letting know people where defibrillators were, of all things. Yeah. Yes, we will. I will show that, the membership level stuff.
I thought Pulse Point was going away.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumor of that. My understanding, it costs the county like 18 grand a year, and I have heard nothing of it disappearing. So I have heard every story from some guy was going to fund it if the county wasn't going to do it, but I have not heard about it going away unless the chief knows otherwise. Yeah, but I haven't heard anything recently. Yeah. Yeah.
How many counties are you allowed to put on your notification?
All right, let's
Because
get into it.
I tried to add and I can't.
Yep. Okay. So some things I can show. Yeah. We do translate in Spanish, but we don't crowdsource any data. But yeah, Spanish, everything should be translated in Spanish, to my understanding. And I haven't heard any demand for other languages yet, but I would assume Portuguese will come as we move down south more, and probably Mandarin. Our app is written to where it can be translated to Mandarin, but no one's done it yet. But my understanding is that it's fully translatable in Spanish, but we won't crowdsource any data. All right, any other? That's right. Now that was a terrifying feature, just so you know. The fact that we given phones, pictures, upload, and us being engineers know how south that could go really fast. So we have a very, very sophisticated moderation system for photos, way over engineered. And sometimes it pays off. There is some kid down in Calveras that runs around with his phone and keeps submitting stuff to us, and eventually we're going to call the cops and send him to his house because we know where those photos are taken. But it's been not too bad. Okay, I can't show this off the laptop, and I don't want to try to show it off my phone. So these are just screenshot of the app. We will refer to this guy up in the far left as the hamburger menu. And that will be pretty routine in any app that you use. That'll be referred to as the hamburger. So if any app that you use and someone says, go click on the hamburger, it's going to be this guy in the top left corner, the one with the little lines. And that's going to denote their settings under there. Okay? When you click that, you're going to see all this stuff. Maps, any messages we sent, join, donate, notifications, your version. If your app needs updating, it should tell you that there's a new version on the store, and it'll send you out to Google Store or Apple Store to update. We're going to cover the notifications first. Okay? With Watch Duty, for free, you download it, you can monitor 4 counties. We did this early on to try to figure out what the balance was for infrastructure. What was it going to do if everyone monitored every county? We had 1 million people and we weren't too sure, so we limited it to 4. And in talking to people, that meant like 95% people's criteria. So you can pick which county you want. And then when it comes to the notifications, you have multiple options. We are a county notification-based system, and we do that very much on purpose. A lot of people ask, like, I only want to know what's happening within 10 miles of me. We could do that, but we'd have to get a lot of information from your phone that we don't really want to get. We're a very privacy-focused company, and other companies that do that gain a lot of information about your phone if you turn on that, hey, I want to know exactly what's going on within a proximity of myself. There's a lot of information about you that can get put out there, so we don't do that. We do it on a per-county basis. Sonoma County is big. We respect the fact that when I report on a fire in Monterey, the people in Petaluma probably don't care about it much. But it usually evens out. When the fire in Petaluma happens, the people in Monterey don't necessarily care as much, but they get to choose how much they care. And that's what makes it nice. So you can pick, I want just the first notification. So a fire goes out and I send out a notification to the county, which goes out to about 180,000 phones in Sonoma County. And I just want to look and decide, I care, I don't care, right? In 3 seconds, I can look at that notification and determine if I care or not. And you won't get any more notifications about that fire. Or you can say, I want all the notifications because you want to know a little bit what's going on in the county, even if it's not necessarily you. You can always go in and we'll show this and say, I don't care anymore about that fire. You can unsubscribe from it, but you might want to know about it. And then we have this other kind of incident that we put out, which is silent, which is usually us gathering intel. Is it a problem? Is it not a problem? We're going to keep an eye on it. We're not going to notify the world. And we call those silent incidents. Some people are like, I got to know about those too. So you can sign up for silent incidents too. You'll see a lot more of those than regular incidents. We will eventually get to the point where we will send through critical incidents that will blow through your do not disturb, that will wake you up at night. We're not doing that yet. There's a lot of consideration that needs to go into that from both Apple and Google if you're going to play in that game. But that's something that we're definitely looking at because there are times, Kincaid fire, Tubbs fire, where we want to wake people up. And then we'll have to put a lot of rigor around that, right? If you push that button from watch duty, it better be real, right? Real. I always joke that all of this stuff is playtime in preparation for October, right? Anything that we're reporting on right now is just practice for the big game. We all know that big fires come when the big winds come. Big winds come are not coming until October, maybe September. That Lake Sonoma fire was, I would consider that definitely a fluke. But this is all practice for the big game. So now it's a real good time to have these meetings. So then you have all of these kind of notification options. So that's one thing on the phone I can't show because you cannot get notifications from the laptop. You can use Watch Duty on your laptop, but you can't get notifications from it.
Get different kinds of notifications.
Yep. You have like a select county, okay? And you have Sonoma County in there, right? So you are set to get all notifications for Sonoma County. So you can click Sonoma County, and then you can decide if you want to get the silent ones or not.
All. Oh, and that's where you get the option.
That's right. And you can do that for 4 counties for free.
Yeah, one bonus for you. My parents have a place in Oregon, and there was a fire up there, and then you select on that and get notifications from that. So it's kind of a bonus. So it's not, you're not limited just to California. There's
That's right.
a way to get notifications about that.
Something I want. I travel in a big truck camper, and I eventually want this thing to tell me I've entered a new county, and to say, do you want that? Because I have no idea what county I'm in. Right, I'm driving through to Idaho or Washington or something, and that's something that we learned. Like, okay, a lot of people that travel don't necessarily know what county they're in as they're traveling through, but maybe they're there for a day and they want to be notified of that. So that's something we'll look at in the future as well. Like, how can we notify? Like, I bring this thing up. Oh, you've entered a new county. Maybe you want to monitor it for a couple of days that you're there. The question came up about memberships. So, like I said, the app is free to use. It's very purpose that there's no sign up required, that you just download it and you go. If you want to donate money to us, there's a $25 a year. That gives you the flight tracking option, which is kind of cool. We've done a lot of work to catalog all of CAL FIRE's fighting equipment, in addition to military that gets provisioned for CAL FIRE and other firefighting flight apparatus. So we have a lot of that in there as well. You can get all of that information obviously from Flight Tracker and Flight Aware, but it just combines it in. For us, it's really nice when you see the big circle of air attack. It's not so nice when you're the blue dot in the middle at your house, but it is good to know. Out on Sweetwater, we had a fire maybe 2 years ago. I think it was a power line that went down, and I'm perched on a hill. I can listen to the actual local TAC traffic from the firefighters, and I could hear them. So we got to find it quick because once air attack here, our game is done. Like we're over. Once those guys show up, they're going to tell us exactly where the fire is, and we lose. And sure enough, the spotter was there, and my house is in the middle of the thing. But you know, firefighters want to get to that fire before air attack does. I mean, don't pretend that there's not competition for them out there as well. They love their job and they enjoy doing it. And when air attack comes, it makes everyone's job easier. But they are like, we have to get to it first. So flight tracking's there. It allows you to do more than 4 counties, and we do have the ability for you to save a place. All right, so you see my home right next to the wall bridge, because that's the wall bridge there. I have friends. Where are my friends? My friends are up here somewhere. Internet's a little slow, so Sweets and Lindsay. I mark their house because I want to make sure when fires get close to theirs. So because I'm a pro member, as a member of Watch Duty, I can assign multiple locations to keep an eye on. So that's something you get for the $25. We're just starting this concept of a pro membership, and this was really for firefighters. There's going to be extra layer stuff that shows land ownership and responsibility. So you have two types of land. You have the local response area, the LRA, and the state response area, the SRA. Local response area, your Healdsburg Fire Department, that's their local jurisdiction. State responsibility, when Marshall's wearing his CAL FIRE hat, that's SRA. We get a lot of great intel from the SRA fires, not a lot of intel from the local response fires, because they're Santa Rosa City Fire, Healdsburg Fire. So usually there'll be some kind of joint command, especially since vegetation fires get such a big dispatch these days. But that gives you just an idea on our map what the jurisdictions are for that. That's a pro feature that's coming. It's going to show all of the evacuation zones for all counties in the state, which is something that no other piece of software does. You'll be able to zoom in and see, here's all the zones split up in Sonoma County and the neighboring counties. That's something that's going to be a pro feature. Right now, when an evac zone gets lit up by us, you will see the ones around it, but you won't necessarily be able to plan for, this is my equivalent up in Mendocino or over in Lake County. So that'll be a pro feature. The fire progression model was the one I talked about. That's probably the most interesting thing. There's a lot of science going into how fires progress without suppression. And we're going to try to figure out how we can get those on our maps to not make them super scary, but super valuable. It's San Diego State, their fire ecology department. One of our members, I got to remember his name, Chase Wink, just got hired from them out of college and is working down there. And another one, Liam, who just graduated from San Diego State. He's one of our staff reporters. And so I'll point that out as well. So we have 170 volunteers. We do have full-time staff as well. Cole Yukin is a full-time wildfire reporter for Watch Duty. That's his job. You'll see Chase Wink. I think he is a volunteer reporter. His father is a battalion chief, right? You'll see the Wink name everywhere. And then we have 3 or 4, Sekar down in LA, Michael in New Zealand, Liam in San Diego. These guys, their full-time job paid by donations and other methods for reporting. And then we have about a half a dozen software engineers. John has convinced very smart people out of Silicon Valley to bail out of really, really good, expensive jobs out of Google, Apple, multiple Fortune 10 companies to come take massive pay cuts to work for Watch Duty. So we have a really good engineering team and some really, really top-notch talent, and they get paid full-time. I will always be a volunteer. This job way stresses me out. I could never do this full-time. You'll usually not even see me drift too far from this area. Occasionally if I needed for Lake County, but I stayed true to home. That's where I am. I would have never had the vision of Watch Duty going past Sonoma County. I would have been very happy with it to stay here. But John saw a bigger need and wanted to really push it out and go after this problem, which I appreciate greatly. Yeah.
Sorry. So I was wondering about the pro one, whether at some point more information about the water.
Yeah. Yep. That's absolutely a vision, especially water sources. Chief back there has a little black book and knows where everybody's water sources are. And it's like, we need to get that black book into something like Watch Duty for the pros to be able to know there's a pool that we can dip on. There's a dip here, there's a dip there, because it works really well when fires are small, and it starts to be more difficult when you have to get mutual aid from other states and you have to rely on them catching a brief in the morning or something, and we could give them these are water tanks you could hook on to. These are these other things. So that's an absolute vision, water sources especially for the pro.
Going around with an app and mapping all that kind of thing. GPS coordinates, and they were going to put them on the fire map. Like, don't think it ever happened.
I don't think they ever got it together. Yeah.
It was really good data.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Chief's Black Book that has water sources, tanks, all of that stuff, that's, I mean, it's invaluable for firefighters coming in for mutual aid. You know, I mean, when we hear of fires way back in Mill Creek and things, the tribal knowledge required, you know, no, don't go up through Armstrong. You have to go in through Healdsburg. And some poor guy's lost on Austin Creek in Cazadero, and it's 4 miles away, but he has to go 60 miles to get there. All of that information ends up being super valuable, and we're going to try to incorporate as much of it, especially water sources.
Yeah, I mean, there's really two options. The county of Sonoma or whoever has the data puts it in a spot that pays you, or they can link it to.
Yep.
That's probably the best scenario, because the county updates the data automatically doesn't watch it. The other option is they call the county every month and say, send me new data.
Yep.
They put it in, that's a good way to do it. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, I was in the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it was fabulous.
And our co-group mapped our area,
Yeah.
and then we asked them to do all the rest of the co-groups, and the county said we need $100,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the app had already been written, it was just a matter of opening it up to everybody else.
I will tell you, I deal with a lot of different COPE groups of some sort. You guys are by far the most organized, the best well-ran in the county, especially out in the West County, trying to get people organized to do anything is very difficult. Rio Neto is really fighting hard to be a fire-wise community, which is fantastic. But in Guerneville, Monterey, you don't get a lot of that there. Cazadero is their own beast. They do their own thing. They don't want anyone bother. They don't want anything bother them, but they're very well functioning. But you guys are the creme de la creme that other COPE groups should monitor. You and Bodega for sure.
To buy Coke City, a lot of us have pretty tax.
Yeah. But the waters, it's a totally achievable thing. It's not a pipe dream at all. So I'm hopeful that's something that we can get our hands on data, and yeah, $100,000 to do whatever. I mean, we built Watch Duty in 55 days for what, $500. Yeah. Yeah.
iPad, and then you put a code, water, you put it here, the propane, the
Yep.
circle, whatever, you put the dot for the pin, and then it produces a map that can be uploaded to the account. So I think John could be hero by simply saying, give me 2 days in a GIS program.
Don't ever tell John you could be a hero. He doesn't need to hear that. I need to keep him focused on what we're doing right now. Okay, so let's talk about features of Watch Duty, because this is where the mapping. I will say that the mapping has gotten, I don't want to say more complex, but it just continues to add more information, and this is where things you want to make sure you don't get lost, right? So you have buttons on the right-hand side. I think on your phone it's still on the right-hand side, right? Okay, yep, good. The legend, I will say that this is going to tell you basically what the fire icons look like. We debate so much internally, these stupid icons, on what should be a full flame, what should be a half flame, what should be a quarter flame, what happens when it's forward progress stop, what if we never hear if it's contained, what do we do for this? But this gives you kind of the basic idea of what things are. I mean, the fire I reported on the other day, it never got a containment number. So I can't really say this fire was contained because I didn't hear that, but I know the fire's out. And so at some point it gets inactivated. And you probably know Chief Baxman, who's out in Monterey, who's everywhere. He's the worst when he gets on the fires and he's in charge because he never tells us anything. I just have to kind of know that, oh, Chief Baxman's back at the station. Everyone's gone. This fire is probably out. So at small fires, it kind of breaks down. At big fires, it works really well. And big fires being something over a couple of acres. But you can see what our icons are. Those silent ones are the ones that have the little bell through them. That's where hey, I think there's a fire somewhere, but these watch duty guys aren't on top of it. If you go out to the map and you'll see the little bell icon, you'll see that we're probably talking about it. But we haven't rattled 170,000 phones. We have icons for evacuation shelters, animal shelters, and then we're gonna light up actual evacuation zones. Yeah, we'll go look at the park fire, which is, I don't think it has any more evacuation orders, thankfully, but it'll give you a little bit of idea of what that looks like. We learned really early that other states like other colors, they like other terminology. Some of them are backwards to their neighboring states. Washington's evacuation terminology is opposite of Oregon's, so that's fun. Some of, this like Oregon and Washington use blue for be ready. And where, California's pretty good about warning and order. So it's taken us a little while, but as we captured people from Oregon and brought them into our fold, they taught us about how their zones worked, and we've done a pretty good job of getting that stuff worked through. We've recently added cameras, our wildfire cameras. This is brand new, so we're going to continue to add to them. But people said, "Hey, I want to know what the cameras are doing." So you'll see our cameras out there. So you'll see the ones that have camera 1, camera 2. Just another piece of information that comes. You do not have cameras. Okay. Let's find out.
Barb was up today.
I am pretty certain that cameras are free. So cameras would be on the map themselves, or if you go to the layers icon, do you see anything for live wildfire cameras under general?
Layers. Oh,
There you go, live wildfire.
there it is.
Yep.
You want to zoom in for the general? No, there you go. I don't think.
How's that? You see that better now? So that's our camera network, right? There's, I don't know, like 3,000 cameras throughout California. That one's very useful. We do power outages as well. We combine all the 4 different power companies in California together. That data comes from Cal OES, not directly from PG&E, so it can be a little slow, but it's useful if you want to know if your neighbors don't have power too, and it's been 15, 20 minutes. We have 2 settings for fire perimeters. one that shows active fire perimeters, meaning there's a fire that's happened right now and we have a perimeter for it. And the historical for the last 5 years. I don't know if it shows historical for this year, though. It might be the last 5 years. Well, I don't see our Lake Sonoma fire. There's the burn there. Yeah. This will drop off next year, the wall bridge, right? Yep, there it is. Yep. So it is showing this year now. So there's a point fire from this year. So I'm way down here. I had a community, the Lower Russian River was very worried about the point fire. And a lot of communities were. Obviously here it was really important. I am a strong believer that the changes that have happened since 2017 were a big impact to stopping that fire. And that if it would have happened 10 years ago, it would have been a bigger problem. Just listening to, it's only the second time I've heard on a scanner all Sonoma County firefighters report for duty. And there was no messing around. There was a lot of aircraft, a lot of fight, and it was amazing to listen to. But I can tell you, even way down here in the Lower Russian River, this makes people nervous. And, it's rightfully so. I'm always sad to look at our fire burn scar around Lake Berryessa that the whole lake is burned, 100% of it. So anyway, so that's the fire perimeters under general. You see that? We have 2 for satellite hotspots. These are the trickiest ones. Satellite detection is very fuzzy. You don't want to rely on it if your house is under one of these red blobs. It's not necessarily telling you that your house was impacted by fire. It could be 1.5 miles away. They're very, very rough. These satellites will spin 2 or 4 times a day, depending on which satellite it is. And it's good for general, this is a big fire, it's very hot in this area. But you do not want to use it to know that my house is on fire. It is not accurate enough. These are the GOES satellites from NASA. Not yet, or at least not that's public. Yeah. One thing you do not see on here yet is lightning data. Lightning data is wicked expensive, even as a nonprofit. It's going to cost us something in the realm between 30 and 100 grand a month to get good quality lightning data. I caution you, for those that use public lightning apps, that 99% of the lightning you're going to see is cloud-to-cloud lightning, stuff that doesn't hit the ground. And they aren't really good at telling you that. So we have access in the not so, as software developers, we may have access to some data that we can't share publicly, that we use to talk to Cal Fire officials to say we are reasonably certain a bolt of lightning hit this area. There's been more than one time when I've been on the text with Marshall that said, I saw a strike here at 5 a.m. We should probably send someone out to Napa in that area. Because a lot of times, even if the bolt hits, it could be days later, right? You've probably heard of holdover fires, right? When the wind finally kicks up. Multiple of those lightning strikes from 2020 in Santa Cruz burned for 2 years. It was 2 years later when spots would come up in the middle of Santa Cruz from redwood trees. One of the big fires in New Mexico withstood 4 feet of snow and rekindled, and it was one of their big wildfires last year. So lightning's a big deal. When I travel the country a lot for work, and when I'm in the Midwest and it's like, oh, it's lightning, it's an everyday thing. I'm like, I'm a little lightning twitchy. And I'm like, it's a 4-letter word for me out in the West County. we're actually we're gonna try to team with the same people in San Diego to get institution level data, which basically is we're gonna try to hop on a license that they have, which will give us better. The company that has the best lightning data probably in the country is PG&E. They know exactly when strikes happen. We learned that as a part of their hawk when we took their tour. They're like, oh yeah, we know very well when lightning hits. I'm not sure where their equipment is. You can put in lightning detectors that cover huge ranges. We've been talking to the county, putting one up on Mount Jackson, starting to get them on the towers. So it's a project we're going to continue to push because we know that lightning's critical. You know, the cameras do a great job of spotting stuff, but having a little bit of more information about when a strike hits will be very valuable in the future. That's something we're going after heavy, but that's something you won't see here. We're hopeful. You'll see some layers for weather. Red flag warnings, something that I'm guessing that most of us ignored up until 10 years ago. I know I did as a young adult. Red flag warning, whatever, right? I'd pay attention now. We don't yet have on here fire weather watches, which obviously precede red flag warnings. I'm going to make a pretty good assumption that our communities are fairly well educated on having some kind of weather app on their phone that's going to light up, and we're going to all know at the same time when bad weather is headed our way. So I'm less concerned about that for Sonoma County as I am in other counties where they're just not quite as educated and don't pay as much attention. But red flag warnings is a big one. Surface wind detection. We don't get a lot of heavy wind, so you don't see the animations very often, which is great. You can see it off the coast here. The things obviously to remember that you probably know: onshore wind good, offshore wind bad, right? Onshore wind brings moisture, offshore wind brings death. That's the best way to put it. So we always pay attention to the Diablo winds basically in the fall time. Hawaii got a big lesson in that, even though I spent a lot of time in Hawaii. And that's not a foreign topic. Their leeward side, their western sides are desert. They're very much like here. And they were always going to be prone to that problem. But Hawaii government really didn't pay attention to it much as they did for hurricanes and tsunamis. Kauai is a fascinating place. It's like a mile that separates 80 inches of rain to a half an inch of rain a year. But obviously for us, we care about offshore winds. We do a really good job now of forecasting that stuff. So it's a pretty good deal. This is really good and useful when you're watching a big fire. Let's go out to our park fire here. Now you can you see the little wind barbs in there? A little bit. Really hard to tell. But that's going to be real telling in red flags when you really see those winds blowing. You're gonna see the correlation of where those satellite hotspots start to light up, which direction fire was going. This is a good example to show evac zones. You can see we have, two different counties here? Tehama County and whatever MLC. What's MLC? I'm not sure what county that is. Maybe that's Shasta County. So prior to watch duty, this, if you lived in Tehama County, you wouldn't know any evacuation information for your neighboring counties. So this ended up becoming very, very valuable to those guys. Is everyone familiar with Purple Air? Okay, so Purple Air's data is open source. So we grab data from monitors and we throw air quality on there. We aren't yet doing smoke modeling. CAL FIRE does great smoke modeling along with the national fire agencies. We'll probably look to add that as well because air quality is always an interesting thing because you don't really know it till it's there, and then I know it's crap. You go outside and my Purple Air monitor says red and it's smoky and horrible out. Okay, that's not a lot of value. but it'd be really nice if you knew the day before that it was headed to you. So that's where we want to get. Not quite there yet.
Has in any way, or if it's the way also, does counties ask, or do you just delegate some documentation for you?
It varies from community to community. The other Joshes out there do a lot of work like this. If we get invited, we try to participate in the fairs and such when we have time. I have 4 other jobs, so I don't get out as much as I would like to. So we don't have people dedicated to it, but we try to get out when people ask for it. I was just at a large Santa Rosa Rotary last week that we got invited to, so I try to get out to do as much locally. I don't feel in Sonoma County the education is quite as necessary as other counties anymore because we're pretty well entrenched in it, but we're trying. These are some of the new features in that professional tier. Ownership and responsibility. This was the federal, state, local. As I was talking about, it's just going to show boundaries. Critical infrastructure, which will be around, these are where radio repeaters are, things that might be valuable to firefighters, not as valuable to you. The evacuation zone planning, which is show me all the evacuation zones all across the Western United States, regardless of if there's a fire happening. This one here, which is also is going to get merged into the critical infrastructure, which is going to tell you the repeater locations with their channels. And this one here, which is just really used internally, called external signals. Let's see if we have any on our map here. That our system captured 5 minutes ago, some kind of vegetation fire that was dispatched in Elk Grove. So this is like all of our bots. We throw these on our maps to help us identify when we need to pay attention to things.
On a current version or coming?
It's both. So the stuff that I just showed you would be on the current version. There will be some stuff like coming soon, the fire progression model, live fuels and forecasting. We'll actually give tools for mapping and rulers and things of that nature. And those are the things that are coming soon.
Again, to get to the like repeaters, where was that? Oh, professional members.
Yeah, radio repeaters and channels, external signals. Those are just us. Don't care about that. For 99% of the population, it doesn't matter. It's those of us that need to nerd on the stuff that it comes into play. Watch Duty is this weird area, right? Where there's nothing here that we're doing that's proprietary, right? We try to sit in the Goldilocks zone, right? You have those of us that torture ourselves as non-professionals paying attention to these things. And then you have those that are like, until someone knocks on my door and tells me to get out, I really don't care. And we try to put Watch Duty in the middle where you want to be educated, informed enough to not get caught, but you don't want to have to pay attention to the minutia. But there's nothing that we do that you can't do with public broadcastify, with scanners. It's everything that we do it's all public information. We don't get anything that's special. There's no one talking to us behind the scenes helping us out.